Hello, good morning. Hi, everyone. My name's Evans. I guess thanks, Paul, for an introduction. Thanks, Jagap. I always like hearing you talk about your work. I saw him speak for the first time maybe 2 years ago and felt a need to come up afterwards and say, like, I'm the guy. I've been doing this for 10 years. I think it's an identification of a real niche in the market that is really growing and I think is fascinating as more and more people learn about it. I spoke to this crowd just about a year ago about my own kind of personal history intertwining development and construction and architecture, basically under the roof of one practice in Blue Lion Building. I'm gonna skip over most of what I said then, but just identify that this company, Blue Lion Building, I guess really does all of those things and has found a really particular niche in infill housing. And I really summarized the process then in 4 steps. We identify large and undervalued lots, mid-block infill in established residential neighborhoods. Not the most luxurious neighborhoods, not the most downtrodden neighborhoods, just established neighborhoods that have character and history of their own and access to urban amenities. Then we design multiple housing units and interlock them within a single structure in a way so that each one feels very much like a house. Grade adjacent entries, generous room dimensions, onwards to that, but very house-like multi-unit buildings. We take ownership of the financing and the construction processes in order to control just basically quality in all of its instantiations. We try and bring a very design-forward product and a very well-built product to the market. And then finally, I guess the kind of missing puzzle piece for all of this is to register the building as a condominium so that each unit there can be sold individually to an end user homeowner. And so they're not like commodity level real estate investments, but homes that are really like sold at the retail level to people who will occupy them as their residents. So skipping over all that, and last year, Foremost filmed my talk last year and put it on YouTube, and I didn't think about it for 11 months until suddenly, 2-3 weeks ago, someone forwarded it to a real estate investing WhatsApp group, and now I'm getting calls every other day. I've had 6 meetings in the past 2 weeks about people really curious about this kind of micro infill condo. And these are, let's call them like smaller scale, research heavy individual real estate investors who are recognizing a real opportunity for infill in the marketplace because of the specific characteristics of the end product. And so I talked to these people and other people in this room, and inevitably everyone asks the exact same question, which is how do you identify a good lot for infill development? And so I'm going to spend the rest of my time today really focusing on that. Here. And so I went on House Sigma yesterday, and I pulled out like a dozen listings. These aren't projects of ours. These are retail sites that are on the market right now. Mostly in North York. Chose North York because JGAP previously explained the Yellow Belt and the expanding permission for multiplex housings. It's not an area of the city that I know deeply and intimately, but I live there now. Our office is there now. I recognize that only as of very recently has it become a part of the city that is very willing to accommodate multiple housing units on a single site. So I think there's a lot of unexplored potential in that part of the city. And so I'm going to walk you through, I think about 7 sites here that I drew up yesterday. What I think can be built on them, what I think it costs to build, what I think they're going to sell for. And I want to give this caveat that I made all of these in about 4 hours last night. And so they haven't been subjected to a ton of scrutiny. But what I want to convey is the process of looking at a site and contemplating what can happen there and the interaction of architectural thinking, planning thinking, development thinking, to develop a kind of imagination about prospective development projects. So this isn't a specific recommendation about a specific site, but an insight into how we should contemplate sites in assessing their value for development. So, 12 Glenbrook. This is a 57 by 133 foot lot near Marley and Lawrence, asking $1.6 million. The lots on this block here are kind of, I guess the lot lines don't show up so clearly, but the lots on this block particularly are abnormally large for the area. And then we modeled out, let's see here, yeah. So I think that means that we're only gonna get about 1.0 times the density coverage in the area. And then I looked to subdivide that into 3 main units in the house, figured out a reasonable kind of sale cost per square foot based on townhouse comps nearby, and proposed a garden suite at the rear, which is fascinating because on a lot of this dimension, the garden suite alone adds 1,500 square feet of saleable GFA, but for a zoning approvals process, that doesn't count towards your square footage count. So we're getting permission to build 7,500 square feet, as it were, on this site, which is the 1.0 coverage, but then you get 9,000 square feet of saleable. So, one other kind of important point. In the construction of the cost base here, I've left off financing costs, which maybe seems a little bit weird in this room, but as I talk to a variety of investors and let's call them like amateur developers, I find that's the most inconsistent line item in everyone's pro forma. Like everyone pays the exact same thing for land. People's hard costs don't vary by more than 10%, but people's costs of capital are all over the place. So when you're seeing my kind of marginal profit line at the end, keep in mind that financing costs and overhead remain to be deducted from that inflated number. So right off the hopper, 12 Glenbrook for me is a site worthy of further scrutiny. Just around the corner, just listed yesterday, 339 Ranney, listed for $1.2 million. It is 20 feet narrower than the Glenbrook site. And for that, it's asking $500,000 less. And because of the built fabric around there, it seemed like a little more density, like a 1.20 might be achievable. And so, let's get you here. Okay. So we've only proposed 3 units instead of 4 on the other side because that narrower dimension on the frontage doesn't allow kind of vehicular access to the rear of the property in the same way without giving up too much good quality livable space in the front. So I think the sale prices as a result are going to be a little lower on a per square foot basis, and the projected profits are like, a little thinner as a result. I think there's still probably good alternative development models for a site like this, but for a multi-unit infill condo, I would say this is more of a marginal case. 154 Bartlett is the one and only urban lot in this site, if you could call it that. It's just northwest of Bloor and Dovercourt. I'm really active in this pocket right now. We have 3 sites under development and 2 of them under construction within like 4 or 5 blocks of here. It's just got 22 feet of width, but unlike the other sites we've looked at, there's a rear laneway at the back of the property, so you could access the property from both sides, which really opens up laneway suites as an option here. And so the model on this one, on 22 feet, I find we can only really get 2 units, but they're 2 good units of over 2,000 square feet above grade. That's selling for about $1,000 a square foot. And then there's a basement in there as well, which obviously contributes to the sense of the value of the property, but not to the zoning consideration or to the sale price calculation on a cost per square foot basis. Yeah, there's an additional laneway suite there of 650 square feet. We sold an identical one around the corner at Bloor and Ossington for this like $700,000 and change. So we feel like that's a really good product. Skipping down to the bottom line, probably not enough to entirely offset all of the required overhead, but I really love this location, and for me, I would still continue to try and find a way to get a 4th unit onto the site, and if that were possible, then I think this would be a much more attractive development site. Coming back, actually not far from here at all, like just east of Yonge at Yonge Boulevard is this really atypical street, Glen Echo Road. Glen Echo is, I guess, 1 block north of the far grander Teddington, and the houses that front onto Teddington have their garages on Glen Echo Road, and then on the north side, there's all of these, choose your adjective, cute, handsome, brick. They're more than cottages, and this one here is already a duplex. So, like, historically, that would have seemed like a tremendous asset to have permission to maintain a multi-unit building on this site. But because that permission has been broadly extended throughout the Yellow Belt, I think that's not really as valuable as it used to be. On 33 feet of frontage, there's a lot of promise for how to subdivide this into multiple house-like units, but with only 100 feet of depth from front to back, which is atypically short, you can see that the rear property line is quite close to the house here, there's not as much opportunity for a secondary structure at the rear. So we modeled this up as 2 houses. It looks like they've been divided into thirds and not into half because we've got 3,300 square feet altogether. I know from experience they're not going to let you get over 1.0 density in this little pocket. So, this juice ain't worth the squeeze. Not too far from there, on 75 Stormont, is it's this pocket like between Bathurst and Avenue Road, just south of Lawrence. If I were contemplating a development here, I would probably want to partner with somebody with a little more boots on the ground experience in this specific area, because it seems like there's just kind of 2 or 3 builders that really own these couple of blocks right here. But I had to include it because it seemed like a lot of land, 56 feet of frontage for just $1.2 million, was like a disproportionately attractive ratio here. And so I thought that in this area, it would be more attractive to come up with like very large multi-bedroom units. So we proposed 3 fairly large 2,400 square foot units. I feel pretty good that those are like between 2 and 2.5 million. And so with a marginal return over 1.5 million here, I think this is, let's say like not a home run, but absolutely warrants further study. And then this one's actually quite cute. This one would be a shame to, not let continue in its current form, I think. But so Walmsley is in this pocket kind of east of Forest Hill and north of Deer Park, where the lotting fabric is sort of noticeably tighter to the point where I would almost call it like a densely urban lotting fabric, although without rear lane secondary access at the backs of properties. This one's expensive. They're asking $2 million for just 25 feet of frontage. And I think you could get permissions to pack the site with a lot of house. And so we came up with 3 front doors, like a total of 3,800 square feet of saleable. But like right down here, contemplating that financing costs and management fees have to come in at the end, I think the land price at just under $2 million is just too much. And so like this sort of goes on a watch list, and if it's still on the market in 4, 5, 6 months, we would contemplate taking a low ball swing at it, but it's really not what we would see as like an attractive investment right out of the gate. And finally, 14 Veerland Drive. I love this little pocket. This is like just west of Kiel, south of Lawrence, off of Rustic Road. And I just discovered this a few years ago because we started renting an office around the corner, and my framer lives here, and not in this house, but in this neighborhood. And it's a neighborhood of housing stock that's kind of handsome, well-maintained, has not been subjected to a lot of speculative flipping. And so these very large lot sizes prevail in a pretty accessible to urban amenities kind of area. I think this is one of these sort of, under-realized corridors that's really going to see a significant improvement with the creation of Eglinton Crosstown and other infrastructural projects nearby. So on this lot, it's cute right around the curve. It's a little irregularly shaped as well, so I think that there's value in just being able to get larger density asks and things like that because of the lot dimensions. So it seemed to me like here we could get 4 units, which is a real sweet spot for us, 3 in a main building of just about 2,000 square feet each. Even though this is, I guess not even though, because this site was proposing the lowest sale price per square foot of frontage, we are also proposing the lowest sale price per square foot of finished product. But the bottom line at the end of this is that I think there's a, sort of reasonable, interesting return on a project of this scale. And then because of the lot dimension, there's over 60 feet of frontage here. I think there's even like more flexible opportunities for not partial severances into unequal pieces, 1/3 on one side, 2/3 on the other, a multiplex on the larger piece, a single family or 2 units on the smaller piece. So this one's in my wheelhouse. I could really keep going on and on and on like this, and there's dozens more of these every week we're seeing right now. But I just wanted to emphasize, I guess, what that process looks like to the curious for balancing an architectural model and a financial model, and balancing a kind of precedent of approvals and a precedent of sales against an imagination about what could be done on any particular infill site. I hope that I've armed you with some information so that you'll be able to, I guess, examine the market for moments of hidden value that you see there also. Totally open for questions. Thank you very much.